The invention of universal consciousness, a failure to end pain. A claim made by a non-dual teacher. How could possibly something that appears in your awareness give you some information about the awareness in which it appears? There are problems with this sentence. First, consciousness is not yours. Second, it assumes that there is a ground that existed before appearance. Third, it separates appearance from consciousness, the ground. Fourth, it implies that there is a subject and object of experiencing. Fifth, thought testifies about consciousness by claiming it cannot. So, this is where the invention begins. There is pain, real pain. Thought wants to help it, but it can't. It invents a state without pain that is followed by desire. Spiritual path is born. Anyone can say pain drives behavior. The precise observation is that spiritual seeking is structurally identical to any other avoidance, just more elaborately justified. The gap between thoughts, that brief stillness, that interval, is the same structural gap that thought projects onto the cosmic scale as the distance between relative and universal. There is no gap without projection. The illusion of the gap creates desire, which says, I must have that. Desire becomes the bridge between what is and what should be. And this drives the search. Search assumes the gap is real, which gives the gap more reality, which intensifies the desire, which continues the search. Thought invents stillness. But invention is movement, which means the journey towards stillness and its apparent arrival are part of the same movement that produced the gap. Nothing was ever interrupted. And because the invention never produced what it promises, it has to repeat the same search tomorrow. There is no stillness between two thoughts because there is no two thoughts. The sequence and the apparent gap between two thoughts is made up by thought. So there is no stillness that thought fails to reach. There is only thought stopping, and stopping is not an experience thought can have, because the having is already resumed. And this is precisely what thought cannot tolerate, the ideal never becoming real. So it does what it always does with what it cannot grasp. It builds a concept around it, universal consciousness, pure awareness, the ground of being, the witness, the true self. The entire spiritual seeking industry, including non-dualist teachings, lives inside that loop, and the loop was created by thought in the first place. Thought divided the relative from the universal, named them as separate, and then generated the desire to cross the distance it invented. This is also why meditation cannot succeed. Meditation is thought reaching deliberately towards something that doesn't exist. The meditator is thought attempting to eliminate itself through a technique it invented. Meditation is an escape toward what should be, not seeing that what should be is only what is, wearing a different name. The ideal is always produced by what is. The universal is produced by the relative noticing its own gaps. The sacred is produced by the ordinary finding itself insufficient. The gap is not discovered, it's produced. Thought doesn't find a pre-existing separation between relative and universal and then respond to it with desire. Thought creates the separation and simultaneously creates the desire as the felt sense of that separation. They arrive together. The gap and the longing for what's on the other side of it are one movement. This also explains why the search cannot succeed on its own terms. Search doesn't want to end, it wants to find. It perpetuates the gap while appearing to address it. Every technique, every teaching, every transmission keeps the gap alive by treating it as something to be crossed rather than something to be seen through. And seeing through it is not another technique. It's noticing that thought produced the gap. This dissolves the entire foundation of spiritual seeking in one observation. The destination was manufactured by the dissatisfaction with the starting point. They were never two different places.